Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Renewables Podcast. Thanks very much for coming back and watching or listening to us wherever you might be, traveling in the van or sat at home with us on the big screen. Thanks very much for tuning in again. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well, mate. It's been a good week for us at home. Matty got married at the weekend, so we had that family get together. It's always nice, isn't it? But yeah, busy in
Yeah.
the day job, same old. How about you?
Yeah, good. I am trying to remember what my own bed feels like because it's been weeks and weeks since I've had a decent stint at home. So coming towards the end of that stint, which is nice, and look very much looking forward to being back in the proper studio with you, sharing a cuppa rather than zooming between each other. But yeah, looking forward to this chat and yeah, jumping into some sort of a varying level of topics and lots of different conversation points that we're going to run through today.
Yes, we do have a few. It's almost becoming like which headboard is going to be behind Sam's head next on the Renewables podcast of late. And we've got some shonky machine gun fired lights behind you that we were just talking about
I'm
off camera.
Yeah, I'm trying to just like get my head like if I go like that, it kind of like try and blank them out. But
Now it'll be good
yeah,
to get back into the Oval HQ and do some recording in person. But these are
yeah.
still useful conversations, I think, and I enjoy having them. And we've got a topic to start with, if you want, around MCS. So
Mm,
been a bit of news coming out from them in terms of the consultation on financial protection and also around the mounting side of stuff. So I'll share my screen for those of you who are watching. You will be able to join in and see this. And if we start with the consultation bit, it should pop up for everyone, hopefully. Can you see that on
there we
your
go.
screen, Sam?
I can indeed. Yeah.
Okay, so it's on the 20th of August, so it's a couple of weeks ago now ish. But they've had this consultation on the financial protection that they're on about bringing out, basically to replace the need for Heisen Rec, I think is the short story.
Mm,
And there's a couple of little bits in there that they've kind of come back with to do with the level of financial protection given to consumers, which has always been a bit of an issue because they do max out at a relatively low figure on some of these bigger projects that I know you do and we do as well in
mm,
our business. The time frame, which is another one. I mean, I think the minimum is 2 years for MCS approval that you need to offer, but we offer more. I don't know if you do that as well. And then the time frame for when they want to bring it in. So that's kind of the points they were needing. And then they've got somewhere they're on about they need further clarification. So failure in design, are they even going to cover that? And I guess it's all well and good assuming that they're covering workmanship or product failures, but what about if it was never designed correctly to begin with? And then some definitions and stuff. So reading around it, it seems like they're a good bit away from it. And I was hoping to be in the new MCS without needing to be in HISAR Rec by now already. And that seems to be still a distant pipe dream.
yeah. It's a bit like you mentioned before about when Give Energy released the release that they were going to do the all-in-one version two, and then people were kind of like, okay, well, I'll wait for that. And I feel like we're in that bit of limbo period now with this, where we all got very excited about the fact that there was going to be a new MCS thing coming out, all more designed around the installation rather than the paperwork, spot checks and really trying to knuckle down on keeping the industry protected from cowboys. Now we can only do that to a certain level. There's always going to be people that slip through the cracks and are able to do jobs that are maybe not up to standard. But we were all very excited about how much it was going to hopefully sort of border patrol to be topical, border patrol the actual MCS sort of standard really. But and then the other part is obviously this part here about the highs and wreck part of it, and some people love them, a lot of people maybe don't, but we were all getting quite excited about that all kind of being in house and maybe being able to be policed a little bit better. I've had mixed engagements with Highs which is who we're with Highs. They've saved my skin a couple of times, and other times it's kind of you bang your head against the wall, and so I think it seems like a lot of this stuff you think would maybe have been sorted out or very close to being sorted out already when they were announcing that they were going to do this. It's like we've said to Ian when he was on the podcast, it's about what comes next, what actually happens is how it'll be judged, not necessarily on the great conversations we've had with Ian. They were great, and I really enjoyed them. But the actual success of all this is going to be based on what actually comes out. And like you said, it feels like we're still quite a long way away from actually seeing that.
Yeah, it does look like that, but I guess is all we can do is wait. And when they're receiving detailed responses from like DESNES and the CMA, these are big players out there in the political scene. So I mean, it's obviously going right to the very top in trying to get this nailed down. And obviously, when consumer protection's involved, I'm sure that's an important aspect. Where grants are involved, we need to remember that MCS, whilst there's no feed-in tariff for us on the solar side, in the heat pump world, there's still a lot of government money, taxpayers' money floating
Mm,
around that system. So they'll be wanting to ensure they get best value from it. The other side of that coin is the update on the mounting stuff, which is very much our sector, Sam. And we spoke about that when it first came to light. I think you were over in Munich at the time. And they've
mm,
kind of popped a little update of what's been going on with that, which I suppose is good because they are trying to keep the communication going around that. But basically, it's kind of as it was. The grace period's still in place till the 10th of November. And if you're doing flat roof installs, you've still got clause 5.5.5. So yeah, it's just really saying that that's just what was there before was continuing, and they've not really resolved it from the sounds of it. They're speaking to some of the certification bodies or the testing centres that do a lot of the solar panel testing for your in-roof systems, and then your flat roof mounting. I think there was some issues because it went to up to 10 degrees, did it or something? I'm not sure what the change was, but there was some issues in certain mounting systems actually being confident that we're going to stay where they should be. So I think there's some other testing and stuff going on with those as well. And again, that was just put out, I think, the 1st of September. So they're on the MCS website. If anybody is
mm.
interested in going and have a look at them.
Yeah, I think it's good to keep people updated. And I suppose with this one, after I had that conversation with Ian and I think it was Alex from MCS about what had actually happened, and obviously it's one side of the story. There's always going to be two sides, certainly in that debate as well. Um, that it sounds like that's kind of outside of their control to a level because they've got to wait for these companies and these manufacturers to actually retest that that equipment. So I suppose that's going to be dependent on when they get that tested, but obviously they're given that grace period. So let's see what happens when we get to that grace period, and yeah, and see what is on the mid and what isn't. So yeah, been interesting development that, and one we'll have to keep our eyes on, so that we can give everyone a bit of information when we see it as well. But if anyone listening or watching gets some information that they want to share, then that's great as well. We can feed that into the future episodes. Just try and keep everybody up to date, because it's tricky, isn't it, when you're trying to bulk buy equipment and 1 minute it's not on the mid and the next minute it is, and then yeah, it's just a really difficult kind of position to be in when you're trying to secure stock for your next couple of months.
That got us all worried, didn't it? Because the fact that that came out of nowhere, essentially, as much as MCS said it maybe didn't, and it had been talked about for a while. Certainly, as installers, we weren't aware of it, and unfortunately, we fell on the side where we're not using equipment that was removed, but very easily could have been. It was by luck more than good judgment, and it starts to get you a bit more anxious about these kind of things, should we say? And MCS needs to do a better job of that communication. I think Ian acknowledged it, didn't he, when he came on to speak with us, that there is a bit of work for them to do there.
Yeah, he did. And hopefully, again, it will all depend on what we actually see rather than what he says. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it progresses, because it it'll almost be nicer to see if their communication increases as opposed to what happens with the end result, as to whether or not some of these pieces of equipment do get removed from the database. Because if their communication increases massively, and we're like, right, they're really keeping us all informed, then that for me is really important, because that's something then that will hopefully carry on into the future, and hopefully stop this sort of thing happening again, because they realize that how important it is to keep us as installers, who are caught in between manufacturers and MCS. There's other in the middle, and we've got, this certification thing is nothing to do with us as an installer. We're battling day to day trying to just get these piece of equipment fitted, comply with all the rules, get paid, and try and have a bit of a laugh in between. And but we are caught in the middle, and it did feel like we were being penalised quite heavily in that whole debacle. So hopefully, MCS really do start to log into the fact that we need to be kept informed, because we are the ones that are registering these pieces of equipment. We're the ones that are using MCS the most, and so we're the ones that are effectively their customers. So we need to be kept in the loop. But hopefully, this whole thing does get resolved as well. I was in exactly the same position as you, Matt. Just by complete luck, the fixing system that we use, I think we use the same one, um, was not removed from the database, so that didn't affect us, as it didn't affect you. But I did, after speaking to quite a few other installers, they were like, "What the hell do I do? Do I carry on fitting it? Do I not? I've got a job on Monday." Because I think it was when I was in Munich, and it was just like this whole storm just erupted. And I came back and I was like, what the heck's been going what's been going on? Um, so yeah, hopefully that all gets its way worked out. But yeah, on that.
And just to say, our supporters at Proteus, absolute legends, and they
Mm.
have got some cool new products. There's the Type D RCBOs now in their range. They've had the Bs and Cs for quite a while. The Ds just launched. Obviously, they're more rare that you're going to be using those, but if you're installing motor circuits or you've got some big banks of lighting circuits maybe where you need that coverage for your inrush currents, they are useful to have in the range. And Sam's got a B version there, but the same sort of
Yeah.
size and scope.
Yeah, they are, and the B types. I was just looking at the size of that. That's basically like the size of an MCB now, and bi-directional Type A. Just they are really, really good, and I'm not just saying that because we're sponsored by them. They're fantastic.
Now you've adopted installing them into your business, and we've been fitting them for a good old while. And as you say, it's just the range. There's the Type B RCBOs that we've mentioned on other versions of the podcast, but they do also have the 4-pole 3-module RCBOs, which are really useful if you're fitting EV chargers on three-phase systems. Before, you'd usually have to have a separate enclosure for your RCD or a bespoke board that Proteus used to do with a little top bit that you could put your RCDs in. Now you don't need to do any of that. It just goes into the spine board, really simple and straightforward. They're not that expensive either in the grand schemes of three-phase RCD protection. And yeah, they've just got a massive range of gear. Go and check them out if you've not seen it already. They're in cities everywhere.
It's such a good point because cities are everywhere, which means if you're ever short of anything, you can guarantee that you'll either be able to get it that day or you can order online and get it the following day. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we'll just have to see, won't we, what happens. And November's not that far away, really. It's 10th of November, so it's not a great deal of distance into the future, is it? So there's work to be done there for them. And I'm sure there's a few other mountain manufacturers who are maybe under a bit of pressure as well with their certification bodies to try and get their products back on the mid in time for that. And you hear all the
Mm.
rumours in the background that there's looming court cases between some of those manufacturers and even MCS. And you wonder if there's any truth in all of that, and we're only getting half of the story, or if it's just installers getting the wrong end of the stick around some of those rumours. But yeah, hopefully it sorts itself out.
Yeah, we'll get to some sort of end point. We'll just have to wait and see what it is.
We will, we will. More interestingly, to do with the day job, Sam, I've been watching some of your stories
Mm.
this week, and you've gone from being up on a roof under a nice shelter, which is a bonus when the weather's not so
Yeah.
good. We were getting soaked while you were under there, by the way, so very
Oh,
jealous. And now
yeah.
you're back on your bigger project. So what have you been up to this week, mate?
Yeah, flying around really. So yeah, it was all very interesting, that one where we were under that cover. And for anyone that didn't see it, it was basically firstly the background of this is that there in Manchester there is I think it's about 91 of these properties, and it's like a big terraced block. And these houses, as you might expect in a sort of trendy place like Manchester, were all almost like a big wooden shipping container. And basically, these properties were constructed um, off site and then basically dropped onto the plot and then all bolted together. So it's 2 stories and they're effectively like 2 shipping containers, wooden shipping containers, sat on top of each other. And they're about, £500,000 for the
Wow.
pleasure of it. But there are some major issues with these properties because the way that the roofing has been done is basically not compliant, and loads of them have had problems. And so the roofing contractor that was there is under an insurance claim for every single one of these 90 odd houses, has had to have the roofs completely stripped and a completely new roof, insulation, everything put back in. And as this was going to happen to this customer, who was already interested in solar PV, battery storage, watched some of our stuff, got in touch and said, look, makes sense that if they're going to be putting a new roof on, we integrate it with solar PV, because there was some of the properties in this over those 90 odd will have solar already. So this roofing contractor was obviously having to kind of work around some of that solar and get it removed and put back on anyway. So we've timed it all in with the roofing being redone, and we've been using something called the Nicholson's IFP. So it's basically like a big square plate that goes onto the chipboard or the plywood of the substructure, and then there is a like a rubber membrane that goes over the top of the roof. So it's like an EPDM or membrane roof, and then there's a big patch that goes over each one of these IFPs, and that just basically has a female thread in, like an M10 female thread, and the really good system that integrates directly with them, both on the design software but also on the equipment that it has, is K2, which is it's a really good quality, high-end roof mounting system. And yeah, it went really well. And one of the really interesting things about that project was that the flat roofing system, because of how these properties are built, there isn't an awful lot of strength in those roofs. So a ballasted system on those is a bit of a no-go, really, because it's just also also light in its construction. So it's the first time that we've done a flat roof system like this that is being held down by there's 5 panels being held down by 3 fixings, which
That's a
just
leap of faith.
it just feels crazy. But how it basically works is there's 2 tracks that run down the middle part of the roof, and they're where the panels will clamp to. And then in the center of those, a certain position that's been designed by K2 as well as Nicholson's IFP, uh, they're at certain intervals, and then there's a cross member that links to both of the long tracks that go down either side, and it basically just bolts that cross member to the IFP, and then that's held down. There's absolutely no wind uplift on it because it's a lower pitch than, say, like the Van der Vaart, which is a really good popular one that I use quite a bit. It's a lower roof pitch. There's a back wind baffle, and there's also a small parapet on that. So there'll be next to no wind uplift on that anyway, but it's absolutely rock solid. And it was good. It was nice fitting onto a different roof structure using a different piece of equipment, because I've seen a lot of them and I have seen these before, but this is my first time doing it sort of from start to finish.
That's interesting. So the actual threaded bit that's in the roof, did you fit that, or was that the roofing contractors who put that in
No,
place?
so we spec'd what it had to be and where they had to be placed, but really just because they had all of the like the membrane welding equipment, because you've got to weld the patch
That's what I was
to
wondering.
the rest of the membrane. Yeah. So they were finishing it off when I was there, because there was 2 that they were just unsure if exactly where I wanted to put them. And so yeah, it's basically like a big, almost like, looks like a big soldering iron. And the roof is membraned as per normal from what I could. Well, it was membraned as per normal, as if there was going to be no solar put on. The IFP, which has a big, like, I think it's a square or a circular plate, I can't remember now. That sits on where you want it to be, and then you basically screw that in like 8 fixings or so through into the chipboard or plywood, and then there's a massive, probably like 400 by 400 patch, or maybe even bigger, that is then sat over the top, and then along the edge of that, or four edges of that patch, it's then basically heat welded onto the rest of the membrane. So yeah, it was quite interesting watching him do it, to be fair. And yeah, it's absolutely rock solid, and yeah, completely waterproof, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, he definitely need it waterproof. The rain we've had up here, I don't know if it's raining where you are, but that would test any sealing system out. We've actually discovered a leak in A121's training centre in the course of all of that heavy stuff we've had over today. So if it's dry now, mate, you're laughing. That is never getting wet.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were a little bit like you mentioned at the start of that little bit.
Oh
You
yeah, of
mentioned that we had
course.
a complete cover, so
Yeah.
it hasn't actually been. Well, it will have been tested today because they were removing the cover yesterday. But it was. I don't know if it was just a complete. Well, it was a complete fluke, but someone was looking out for us because when we were there doing that over the was it Monday to Tuesday, it the Monday I think it was absolutely horrendous weather, but we were completely dry because over these five properties, only the one we were working on had a complete rain cover, and
That's
we were just
divine
stood.
intervention, that is, mate.
Oh, we were just stood there looking at the rain coming down, and myself and Dean got incredibly wet lifting the panels up onto the scissor lift to get them up onto the roof. But yeah, for the rest of the day, we were just absolutely bone dry, which was, yeah, there was someone looking out for us. I must have done something good in a previous life to warrant that sort of look.
I'd seen as well you were saying about the cable run when you were up on the roof. You didn't look to be looking forward to doing it. The number of holes you might be having to open up in someone's house. And I know exactly what you were feeling because we've all been stood there knowing what's coming and we've got to do it, but we just don't want to at all.
Well, I mean, we even got lucky with that. So there was two ways that we're going to do it, and the way that I wanted to do it ended up being wouldn't have been the best way to do it, and that's the reality of some of these things. You look at it and you go, yeah, I think that'll work well. And we were going to take it off the edge of the roof because the all the battery and everything is actually going in his back garden on the end wall. And so at that side of the house, there was a lot of paneling that you could easily take off. And so we're going to drop the DC cable behind that paneling all the way to the floor and then out through a duct over to where the inverter and everything's going. But just the way that it would come over the roof, this customer didn't want to see any cables. And obviously I'm not going to start trying to like feed it through the gutter in and all this because it had an internal gutter. So I was looking at it and my brain, you know, when your brain and your gut goes, you need to take this cable inside, and you know you need to take this cable inside. But I was like, but it's so much easier to take it off here, and you go, and your brain's just like, no, take it inside, like a good boy, take it inside. So when I finally decided that's what I was going to do, we when you actually start physically looking at it, all the ceilings are all MDF, so there's no it's not plaster or anything like that. So I put my first hole saw up in the cupboard to try and feed the cable through, and I was like, oh my God, it's all like 24 mil MDF. This is going to be an absolute nightmare. Um, but we managed to take it down through the airing cupboard where this hole was anyway, and through the first floor, so we were up against the ceiling of the ground floor. But because these two buildings were basically sat on top of each other, there was a completely clear run to the end,
Jackpot. Love it.
absolutely to the end of the building. So we were able to drill through the end of the building behind the paneling, and then drop our AC cable, DC cable, comms cable, internet cable, everything out down behind down behind the cladding, and then it's just coiled there, ready for going through individual ducts over to where the inverter and the batteries are going. So yeah, it ended up being okay, and we managed to hide all the cabling. So happy days.
Result. It looks a really good job. Then you get nice projects like that, to be fair to them. I think you seem to relish some of these ones that are a bit more bespoke and tricky. Is
Hmm.
that fair to say?
Um, I like. I mean, one of the reasons why I've been out on site a lot is one that we're busy, but two is I'm a bit nervous about some of the projects that we're on. Not through the guy's ability. The guy's ability is absolutely up there. but it's just my own insecurity about getting some of these done absolutely bang on right and not being in control. And that's more about me than it is about anyone that works for me, to be honest. But yeah, I like the easy ones. Dean's been on quite an easy one at the beginning of the week after he was with me on that one on Monday. Whilst myself and a gentleman called Gary was helping me on that one, trying to get that all those cables out. But I do like those more bespoke ones, the challenging ones. But after like a month of doing challenging one after challenging one, I really just want a nice little 3.6 kilowatt inverter in a little coal shed with a battery just next to it or something like that, because or a nice garage with loads of space. But yeah, this one that we're on now is a really interesting one. It's a Grand Designs project, and I think they're filming it next week, so we're under a little bit of pressure this week to get it to a point where it's going to be, well, they'll film whatever's there, but it's kind of on me really to make sure that it's my work and the manufacturer who's kind of partly in on this is presented in the right light. So there's quite a lot of external pressure there for me to get this looking exactly how we want it, and I've only got tomorrow now to sort that. So
Get your Oval
so yeah.
Renewables sticker gun out and plaster them absolutely. Get them in the windows. Get them anywhere they'll be taking footage, mate.
Yeah, well, this is it. I've got a fresh pack, so we're gonna be blitzing it. But whether or not to take them all off, I don't know. But we shall see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting this one powered. It's a really good one. And when the episode comes out, which isn't supposed to be too long far away, to be fair, because it's the last filming session that they're doing next week. So once that's out, hopefully we can share a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone gets an opportunity like that. So credit to you guys for taking it on, and I'm sure you'll deliver something that's awesome. And knowing a little bit about it that we can't talk about, it sounds like it's going to be really interesting. And hopefully, Grand Designs do it justice for you and feature it prominently in the
Yeah,
episode,
fingers
especially
crossed.
with your phone number and your website. Kevin McLeod's watching. That's one just wants to be in there.
Come on, Kev. Come on.
We've had a pretty simple one this week with our projects, but with Matty been away, I've been out on site, a bit like you, getting stuck in. We had Ollie with us, so he came to help. It was a big solar system. We had 24 panels on it, so a reasonable size on a domestic house, but we sort of cleared it in a couple of days. It was one of those where everything just fell into place. Nice garage to work in, like you were just saying there. I was in a lovely little garage. Customer had emptied it. The only problem we had is there was an extension that had been put on top of the garage. And as we brought our PV Ultra in, Nathan had kind of drilled the hole, and some of the mortar had chipped off on some of the outside bricks. And when all that rain came, I started to notice rain coming through the garage wall. It was only single skin. I thought, what the hell's going on here? And went out and had a look, and me and Ollie were stood there like, have they firmed those bricks in? The top row of bricks they'd put on this garage wall had gone up to like a steel that was carrying the extension, and they'd firmed them in behind like a little mortar bead they'd run across the front. So obviously that mortar bead had cracked while we drilled through, and like, yeah, they have. So that was fun trying to get that sorted back out after the fact. But other than that, real nice project. Again, the usual Sage Energy, Sig Energy stuff, gateway, EV charger, nice bit of trunking. Use some Marshall Tufflocks actually. I haven't used that for a bit of time, and there's some clips you can get for their maxi trunking. Don't know if you've ever used it before, but it kind of slots in, and you can put your fixing screw through it, and then it'll carry your cables while you install them, rather than having to try and get some all-around band or fire fixings around the cables when they're in situ. So that was a nice little discovery, purely by accident. If it helps anyone out, it's well worth checking that out from Marshall Tufflocks. Not paid or sponsored yet. If they're offering, we're listening.
Yeah. No, we just use Marshall on ours because it just the lid, more so the lid and the way it all goes together. It's just so much better than some of the other stuff. So yeah, I've not actually used those clips before. I saw in your stories about using those clips, and yeah, they do look good. I saw them at like one of these trade shows, and I've always wanted to give them a go, but it's like you kind of I've never had them on the van to give them a proper go. So yeah, I'll have to get some and give them a good looking over. But no, it's nice when you find those little wins. But to go back to your point on the foaming of the bricks, this was something that you just reminded me with that actually. because there's been some other news out there in the world of sort of renewables about external wall insulation, and that they're basically finding now that a lot, probably I would dare say the majority of these government funded like warm homes grant style installs where they've been fitting the external wall insulation has basically started to cause more problems than it's solving because of the way that it's been installed. And I put something out on my social media channels this week just as a frustration, really, because this is something that I think a lot of these government schemes are getting are falling into in terms of grand ideas, fast rollout to see quick results, and forgetting that people need to be properly trained for this stuff to make sure that you aren't just paying, the government isn't just paying, and us as taxpayers aren't just paying for problems in the future. And it's just a frustration that, you hear about these government schemes around solar PV, potentially about battery storage, and there's obviously this about the insulation side of things. And you just know, a lot of us that have been in business for a little while now, just know that you aren't going to see any of that work because that work is going to be gobbled up by companies that are going to be submitting a very, very cheap bid to do that type of work. And the lessons of what has now happened with this external wall insulation problem is going to be repeated across whatever they try and do, unless they actually decide to pay decent rates and actually get installation companies to do it that know what they're doing. And that's very easy for me to say when I'm not sat in the chair of having to roll out, big new government incentive. But it's just so frustrating that we don't have a longer view on this sort of stuff and actually go, right, we're going to do this many. We're going to really find the people that know how they're doing it, who is already doing it, because if they're already doing it, they probably know how it all goes together, rather than sort of these new companies starting up that just smash in as much as they can and get as much money as they can. And it's just such a frustration, such frustration.
It's a repair of the repair already, isn't it? Because they've already had a go at doing it wrong once with a lot of that insulation. And there's a few leaseholders in a lot of these high-rise flats who've had their value in the homes totally decimated, or their value in their leasehold properties because of this insulation scandal and cladding scandals that all happened after Grenfell. And yeah, you're dead right. These companies spring up and they see the cash grab, and governments and policymakers think they're getting value because they're taking these cheap bids. And I guess that's their role in society. They need to get value for taxpayers. But if that value delivers the work having to be repaired again and again and again because it's never been done right, it was never value to begin with. It's that illusion at the point it's been done. Oh, we've put all this insulation on homes, right? We're brilliant, but none of it's safe and it's all damaging the actual buildings. So it's going to need replacing and we'll have to pay for it all over again. And it builds into the world of solar and battery. You're dead right. And I'm sure into heat pumps as well, where there's these high volume installation companies that are springing up doing stuff on very fine margins, if any at all. And are they really delivering value for taxpayers and homeowners? Probably not, is the truthful answer from what we see out in industry. But the bill that is required to do that work that the government is pushing, if it is going to be done properly, is probably so large. I wonder if they don't know that and they're just turning a blind eye because it's easier to do that than to come up with the money that's actually needed to do it properly.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to that thing of cost and value are not the same thing. There's a cost of doing a job, but that cost is completely unrelated to the value of the job that you're getting. And we see that privately. It's not just all in the, when we're spending public money. Is that, paying more, and this is how I often try and explain to us to our customers when we're in the sales kind of patter, if you like. We're not we really have a sales patter, but is that the cost of the equipment and the service and everything is different to the value that you get from it. You could pay 3 grand more for a system, but get much higher value because that system has been designed properly, it's maintained, and you've been walked through it, so you actually know how it all works. I've been in positions where, companies that I've worked for just on an installation basis when I first started were selling jobs that were really cheap, when I actually got to see how much they were selling it for. Um, but my little bit might have been just doing the battery, and they were just basically throwing the keys to the homeowner of the solar and the battery system at the end of it and going, "Yeah, we're all done, love, we're off now." And the customer's like, "Hang on, I spent 10 grand on this or 15 grand, whatever it is. How does it all work?" "Oh, you'll get an email with an app, just log into that." It's like the hard work for an installer starts day one they're on site, but the value for the customer starts as soon as you leave site because the job is done. And so going back to the insulation side of things, that the installer's benefit has finished when they get in the van and leave, but that homeowner is only going to start seeing the benefit as soon as that work is all done. And that's like you said about heat pumps and everything else, like maybe even more so on heat pumps because of the how critical it is. I think often, certainly in these big schemes, both government and just privately, the cost and value get mixed into the same bucket, and it's not. They're completely different buckets, and the cost needs to be compared to the value, and that isn't an easy equation to do. Don't get me wrong, but it's something that does need, I think, greater scrutiny, really.
You're absolutely right. And often we look at just the equipment when we're looking at that cost and value relationship, where certain installation companies might specify a budget brand to something that we would consider more suitable, that's carries a bigger price tag. But the same applies for your installers. And I'm sure, and in fact, I know you get the same kind of things as I do, where a customer will message at a certain time of night asking a question about their app or the system, and it gets dealt with quickly because it's important to us and our businesses that we deliver that service. And our ongoing sales through the business and prior ones kind of account for that. It's part of our job, isn't it? But you're not going to get that if you go with a big national company, or even a large government scheme that's running. That's just not something that exists. You're kind of in the realms of emailing customer support, maybe getting a reply in a few weeks. And yeah, that is the part of the value that you bring in your price tag when you are in the proposition stage. And consumers been aware of that, and receiving education pieces about it is really important. I think that's missing a lot from some of these government initiatives and schemes, that they should be educating customers more on what is actual value and what to look for. And maybe our own trade associations and bodies, the CPS providers and MCS as well, need to do a better job of that, of reaching into the consumer base and explaining to them what good value looks like.
Yeah, I put something out on LinkedIn months ago about that we have to move from trying to just train installers to do all this stuff now, because installers are led by what customers expect as much as they are about their own personal pride in the work. And so if customers are expecting, a 15-minute handover at the end of a job, because that's what the industry has told them that they should expect, if that installer isn't doing that, they can go, "Hang on, you need to tell, you need to tell me what all this does now." And then that then changes behavior within that installation company. But that's a really hard thing, because people are, a lot of them aren't really that interested in listening as to what a solar PV installer should be giving them at the end of their job, because the vast majority of people might not be interested in getting a solar PV installation. So it's kind of like, what routes do you take to get that customer really fully informed? And maybe there should be some sort of like pre, when, certainly on the solar side, when you've confirmed the job that you're going to do, maybe there should be some sort of pre communication between MCS and the customer to go, "Right, we can see you've been registered. You're going to get an MCS certificate on this. If you're part of our scheme, this is what our installer that's part of our scheme should be giving you at the end, both physically as paperwork, but also physically on site, showing you how all this system works, and maybe a bit of a checklist." So there's the things like that that I think would be helpful. And as soon as installers that probably moan about it, to be honest, because it's extra,
Definitely.
extra time and work, but as soon as that becomes kind of what's expected on all the installs, because the customer's been told about it, then people adopt it, and that's change habits. But it's it is a tricky one to try and get right, and MCS have got a lot on their plate at the minute, as we've just been speaking about.
Yeah, you're dead right. We would moan about it for sure, but that's because we've got that historical side of things where we see a lot of this admin that's put towards us and it doesn't seem to bring value. If it was something that came forward that was a hassle to begin with, but actually resulted in some decent change, most of us wouldn't mind doing it and we'd embrace it. I think we saw that benefit. And you think with like AI, you're saying like this is extra admin for MCS. If someone was manually doing it, there would be, but with an AI process, a lot of this could just be done with one thing, central bit of content they create, be it a newsletter, an article, a little video, whatever it is. And that just goes out to every customer's email inbox when they're kind of booking their installation with the chosen provider. I think there's some legs in that idea for MCS to tap into. Sam, you want to get on the commission gravy train like all these other certification providers that are out there? Why not have a piece of that pie yourself, mate?
Yeah, well, that's it. I'll send my invoice. But I think one of the things with that is that even though it would potentially be a little bit more work, a lot of installers, a lot of the really good installers out there are probably already doing that sort of stuff anyway. So it wouldn't actually be that much, if any, more work to the installers that are already taking pride in making sure their customers are fully informed with how the system works. That goes for the heat pump side of things as well. What to look out for, what these gauges mean, how often should I be getting it serviced, all this other sort of stuff, which there are some rules and regs around that, but really drilling that home to make sure everyone's doing it. And the other thing is that some of the companies that you would quote unquote call cowboy companies out there that we've all come across in terms of that are still going or that aren't still going, the harder you make it for them to be a cowboy company, the more likely they are to go, we had a good run. We're gonna just call it here now because it's just getting too hard, or they're forced to close because they're not complying to all these rules. So yeah, the harder you make it for the poorer installers, the better it is for the industry. But it means that the whole level rises. So you're not then competing with a company that's going to smash a job in a day and basically just throw the keys to the customer at 7 o'clock on a night and go, right, when you wake up in the morning, it'll probably be generating and yeah, best of luck with it. The companies are held to account to a higher standard.
Exactly that. Exactly that. So if all of the good contractors out there are going to be doing this anyway, because that's what we do. If the ones are still getting away with it who don't care, that's where the breakdown is. If they raise that barrier and gatekeep properly, we all be quite happy with that. That's what needs to happen. But while we're speaking about the handover thing and the commissioning, I've got to ask you because I've had a really long one of these the other week. What is the longest time you've had a customer drag out? I'm going to say drag out a commission process where you stood running through the system with them.
I mean, over my entire career, I've had ones where we've been there for easily an hour, where it's been like, right, I want to come and see where you've taken that cable in. I want to come and see that that label's all spelt correctly. I can't. I think it was actually there was a couple when I was actually subcontracting, which is even worse because I wasn't even getting the cream of the job. I was literally on my day rate or whatever, and I'm still there at like 7:30 in the evening after driving an hour to do this job, and I'm like, I need to leave. This isn't even my job. But you kind of you spend the time and you do it. But yeah, you get these ones, don't you? What was your long one? What was your
It caught
longest
me
one?
by surprise, to be honest, because the customer had been quite low key all through the project, like seeming like they weren't even that interested in it. And then it came to commission and handover, and they wanted to go through absolutely everything. And sod's law, it was about 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. And I thought this will be a nice 15-minute quick whiz over. The guy was pretty good with IT, so it'd be a nice, easy one, this. And now I was there for, it must have been a good hour going through everything. And you go into professional mode, don't you? And you want people to be happy and understand what they've had done. But yeah, that one was a bit of a stretch, to be fair.
Yeah, it's you do get it, but what I try and tell the guys that work for me, both in the office and out on site, is that we're doing this stuff every single day. We're doing it, so a Sig Energy or a Solar Edge or whatever it is you're installing with 20 panels across the roof. They've lived in that property for 10, 15 years, and that property has looked pretty much the same for 10 to 15 years. And now it's got a lot of nice looking black, sleek solar panels on. They've got this system in the garage that cost them 15 grand. And suddenly that's like a lot of money they've taken out. And so I have to kind of like condition myself to go, if they want to spend 20 minutes, half an hour knowing about this system, that's fine. For us, it's kind of like, right, well, I've done 2 of these this week. Why is this one taking forever? But it's a lot of money to them, isn't it? And their property has never looked more different than this point in its history. They've maybe had to battle the wife to say, right, we're gonna have this battery system, and so now they know that they're gonna have to try and justify it through the app and everything. And so there's all these points that are external to what we see day in day out as installers that we need to be that we just need to like keep logging into to go, no, this is a massive deal for them, isn't it? But yeah, they are the ones where you do get a nice little 5-10 minute run through and they're all happy with everything. They're great. But yeah, I've had a few longer ones as well. And I know Dean has as well, who works for us.
Yeah, it happens, doesn't it? But part of the job at the end of the day. I saw something else interesting in the news today. Were you referencing about the insulation? It's kids catapulting solar panels. Apparently, this is becoming a
Not
thing
seen
on
that.
school premises in particular, where they get like these powerful catapults and they're shooting sterns and stuff up at
Ah.
solar panels as a bit of target practice. And it was actually a customer of mine who made me aware of this because we'd put optimizers on their array and it was unshaded. And as always, put it on YouTube, and some of the comments came in as normal. Why are you fitting optimizers and all the rest of it? And he lives next door to an open playing field and a kids park and stuff. And he was saying after watching that, he's now got a second set of eyes over his garden fence all the time because he's paranoid of that happening. But yeah, it's reassuring him that that's kind of another purpose of the optimizers, that it's vandalism, damage from birds dropping stones on arrays, any kind of silly stuff can happen. And you have that safety function that is so often dismissed and belittled by people who are dead against optimizers in unshaded arrays.
Yeah, it's a weird one, this whole optimizer debate, because it you know, I know there's obviously there'll be some people that when your car has a reversing camera or something, they'll go, oh, I prefer the old-fashioned way. But most of us just adopt it and go, that's pretty cool. That's really handy. Your car's sat on your driveway, and when you're reversing, it's literally maybe 2-3 meters away, depending on the size of the car, as to what you're looking at. When you've got optimizers, the panels are up on a roof that is inaccessible in most cases. You've spent, like we say, 15, 20 grand on a brand new all singing, all dancing system, but yet you're not happy with the innovation of being able to see that 15 to 20 grand investment is actually working as you expect. And also, cars, to keep on that analogy, have all these sensors now. They can basically tell the mechanics what part is not functioning correctly. So you haven't got to take the full thing apart to try and find a valve that's not working or whatever it is. And that's similar to what these optimizers do for solar PV. But yet there seems to be this massive, I don't know, this massive kind of negative attitude towards optimizers that basically make our job as installers more straightforward in the longer term because we were able to identify where problems are, allow us to repair systems easier because the optimizer will synchronize a new panel that might have different characteristics into the array. But yet, when you start fitting them, people are just like, "Why are you doing that? There's not a tree nearby." It's like the tree is the tip of the iceberg. The shading is the tip of the iceberg, but it's probably just an education piece that people need to go on, both customers and installers. But yeah, it is an uphill battle to try and sell some of those sometimes.
It is, and when we just started proposing them on every system because I was sick of having the argument in comments online and also with customers who were trying to kind of penny pinch a little bit on their systems because our view was they are that important that we just want to put them on every project. And I get everyone's not got a budget for all the singing and dancing bells and whistles, but I just think it's a safety function that should exist on any solar system. And there's some good innovation coming around that. Sig Energy, again, they've got some, I think they're microinverters rather than optimizers, but they kind of have their own Wi-Fi mesh network that they build. And you don't even need to map them. Like with Tigo and I believe SolarEdge as well, you have to map where the panels are. These kind of figure it out for themselves, I guess, through GPS and whatnot that's built into them. So I'm hopeful of checking out a bit more on those at Solar and Storage, because we've got that coming up soon, haven't we? It's on the horizon for the end of September. I know I'm going to be there. Are you popping along to that as well?
I cannot wait for that. I love going to Solar and Storage. It's like nerd's paradise for us. Um, and yeah, I'll be on the Doncaster Cable stand representing PV Ultra and just Doncaster Cables, because they're absolute legends of a company. Those guys that work there, and yeah, meeting up with loads of installers probably throughout the days and having some really good conversations. Yeah, I can't wait for that. I think it's the end of September, isn't it? I think from memory. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And yeah, we'll be able to meet up, and we might try and grab some footage if we get chance for the podcast, and have some conversation with people. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I fully intend on doing that. I want to head to the PV Ultra stand and ask them when they're going to bring out some nice 6-core PV Ultra. Because next week, I've been messaging Sam privately, actually. We've got a difficult, not difficult, but it's one where we would be able to get away with a single run of PV Ultra if it came in 6 cores instead of 4. And now we're going to have to run 2 across. And yeah, I'm blaming you for the minute, mate.
Yeah, there's been I put something out on my stories about this, because it's something that we have been chatting about. There's nothing confirmed around any of this yet, but we've been chatting around potentially a 6-core version, potentially one with a Cat 5 in for like your Tigo optimizers, so that you haven't having to strap like a Cat 6 or Cat 5 to to the edge of a PV Ultra going all the way up. And also an earth version as well. So you've got your either functional earth or your bonding cable, however you want to attack that bit of a minefield. Yeah, just trying to give people a bit of more of an offering. But the guys are great at Doncaster Cables. They're not scared of doing some innovation like that. Their brand is really known for innovation. With EV Ultra, PV Ultra, and just a lot of the even stuff outside the renewables industry, like their fire cables, and their Earth Show as well, where it's a pre insulated or pre-identified, should I say, CPC conductor. Like all that sort of stuff is just, there's no better company that does that in cables that I've ever seen.
It shows it's good innovation when installers are turning around and saying, that's brilliant, but we want this as well. And that you kind of give us an inch and we'll try and take a mile, but it shows that it's a good idea. So keep on that, Sam, with your friends at Doncaster Cables. And one day I'll get away with a single cable run instead of 2.
Yeah, 20-core cable for these massive
Christ,
arrays.
yeah, be a good one, won't it? We've also got the Electro coming up, and when this podcast comes out, I think it'll probably have already happened. But we're going to pull this little bit of content out as a short, because we've both been doing something with Malcolm Duncan and Mike Jones as kind of the Happy Electrician Workshop is what they're branding it as. And if you go into Elex in Coventry, it's Thursday, the 11th of September. They've got a couple of sessions on. So there's one at 11:30 till 1 and one at 2 till 3:30. And it's well worth going and spending time doing that, because I found great experience and value from doing it over the last, I think it's 9-10 months now. And I don't know about yourself, Sam, but it's a good one, isn't it?
It's so good. I mean, one of the things that kind of happens when you have your own business and everything is you end up just getting so stuck inside the business, and you find that you're in this rat race around just trying to keep everyone happy, and not kind of keeping yourself attached to what am I trying to get out of the business, and am I supporting my team correctly. And let's face it, there's a lot of business gurus out there on the world of Instagram and all of that, but it's quite rare that you're able to form a group of like-minded electricians, all together, that are sharing knowledge, sharing experiences. We're all in different stages in our careers and in our business development. Some of us in this little group that are part of that initial group of people that were involved. Some people are just starting a business at that point. Some people have been running a business for decades, and you kind of like learning from everybody, but also people that have been running the business for decades doesn't mean that they've been getting it right for decades. It might be that they're only now looking at, are they charging enough? are they targeting the right jobs that they actually enjoy, and all of this sort of stuff. And I think what Malcolm and Mike are doing with this is something that has been needed for so long, but without any kind of ego, without any kind of like hard sell thing, like anything like that. It's just not them. And they're doing it because they really want to make a difference to people and actually get people happier in their work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Malcolm is someone who can speak with confidence and knowledge that he's walked the walk. You know, you're dead right about the business gurus that are out there. They're plentiful, and many of them haven't actually achieved a great deal themselves when you drill down into it. But for those of you who don't know, Malcolm is the creator of SuperRod. He distributes Klein tools all around Europe, and he's been 30 years plus at this, and he's sharing the bits that he's learned through his work life, both the good and the bad, alongside Mike. And it's well worth going to check out. It's 100% free. You don't have to pay for it. We're not on commission either.
Yeah.
So there's no money involved with any of this. It really is just kind of a community thing to help people be happier in their jobs. It's not necessarily about becoming massive companies or anything. It's really about improving your own lifestyle and well-being in the job that you've got. So go and check it out and get involved with Malcolm and Mike.
Yeah, I think just to add to that last bit there, Mark, is that a lot of us put pressure on ourselves to want to feel like the success is only when you've got 50 guys working for you, you're turning over 10 million pounds and all the rest of it. And the reality is the majority of businesses that do a lot of the work in the UK, or majority of the work in the UK, are small to medium sized companies that are maybe turning over, 500,000 to 1.5 million or whatever. I don't know the exact bracket, but a lot of us aren't far off that anyway, if not already there. And so it's identifying and being happy with where you want to get to, but also not being scared to try and push things and try and achieve it. But getting the plans in place to do that is something that it doesn't necessarily come naturally to all of us, but is something that with a little bit of guidance, you can really help it can really help you to know what you want to get to, and that you're on the right track to do it. And that's something that this initiative that the guys have started has really helped me, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, the A1-to-1 training space probably wouldn't have happened by now if it wasn't for joining that. I don't say that lightly. It's always been on my mind since I first started the Apprentice 1-to-1 initiative back in 2020 that I kind of had a vague goal that I'd like to do that. But it was really from sitting down with all you guys and having the conversations with Mike and Malcolm that was kind of like, well, maybe we should just get on with it and make an effort at that, because it was something that I wanted to do and be happy in doing through my work life. So yeah, that was certainly something that sparked that in me, and maybe it will with you as well when you go and attend this seminar with the guys down at Elex Coventry, and hopefully we'll see you there, because I'm going to be there supporting Malcolm and Mike with what they are doing, and the safe isolation stand as well. So if you are popping along to Coventry, come and say hello.
Yeah, very good. Well, it's always a good show, that one. I don't think I can get there this year, which is a shame, but yeah, I'll certainly be cheering you on from whatever wet roof I'll be on at the time.
Yeah, I mean, next week we've got that project to clear out by Wednesday, and then I'm going straight off down there. And that is my week ahead. Is there anything else you want to add to our conversation tonight, Sam? I know you're waiting to get down to the bar and go and have some tea, so I don't want to keep you any longer.
No, I think it's been interesting, these ones. Hopefully the next one we do will be in person. But it's been interesting doing these ones whilst I've been working away, because this is the reality of doing renewables. Most installers are traveling to do their jobs, because it's still not completely mainstream, so people aren't working just in their local area. There are some companies that I speak to that do quite a lot of their work in the local area, but for the majority of us, we are traveling around doing this sort of stuff. And these last few podcasts have kind of reflected that a little bit. And but it's been nice having the freedom to have a really nice chat around all sorts of different topics. So yeah, looking forward to getting in front of some guests on a nice comfy sofa, with all the proper audio equipment on my side, and yeah, really having a good conversation with some really interesting people coming up.
Yeah, we've certainly got a list of guests to get back organised with, and we'll be doing that. We want to get those people coming back through the studio again and out at the trade shows. And I've enjoyed having these chats over Zoom. I love a Zoom podcast anyway. I always have done. And it's been nice to run through a load of topics with you. And we'll get back in studio soon. But you're dead right. It is the reality of working at the coalface of renewables. We both do that. We're walking the walk out in industry. We're not just talking about it as armchair experts. And the proof's in the pudding while Sam's sat in front of his headboards around the country. If you've got any questions around what we've been speaking about in any of these, as always, do drop them in. Massive thanks to everyone who has subscribed over on the Spotify account. We're building up a little community over there as well. So if you want to get ahead of the curve and listen to next week's episode, you can do that through Spotify at the minute. And we might be bringing that to YouTube as well soon. Otherwise, thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.